Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Molchap here, coming at you with another StarCraft commentary. This is game number 2 of the gentleman on your left, Goodfriend, versus the gentleman on your right, Midas. Both very strong Terran players from the 2005 era, which is when we were watching this game from. This is from the IOPS OSL. In early 2005. This is the second game of their quarterfinal. Whoever wins this is going on to the semifinals, which is a pretty big deal because then you can get more money. Now it's also, you know, the possibility of getting a medal for third place. It's a possibility of getting into the finals. It's a possibility of winning the whole thing and becoming a champion. And so both these players have their eye on that for sure. They want to win it, but there's some stiff competition still left for both these players. Specifically for Midas, it's going to be the green Terran on the left side of the map, by the way. Midas is down 1 game, and so he has to come back here and win 2 games in a row against Goodfriend, who has been looking very, very solid in this whole Star League, in the round of 16, and in this round of 8 game that we watched. He's been looking really good. So curious to see how that goes, how it goes for him. But yeah, so Midas has to dig himself out of a little bit of a hole here. By the way, green Terran on the left. Goodfriend is the teal Terran at the 6 o'clock position. And we got green versus teal TVT, so I apologize in advance if I can't see something properly, if I mess up seeing one player's units as another's, because it's going to be a little bit hard to tell the difference between these two, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, this is the map Requiem. Very likely that we're going to see early tech builds, is what I'm imagining. No expansion builds is what's likely here, just by virtue of this map where the expansion base, the natural expansion's on the high ground. It's difficult to hold it against a push, right? You can get or you can get locked into your base as well, theoretically, if you try and tech too hard or econ too hard. So, you know, we've seen contains on this map, for example. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm expecting both players to go to factories or factory starport. Oh, look at those Midas fans with their heart balloons. Look at that kid. Did you see his face? He's like, ah! Anyway, I'm sure that's exactly the noise he was making at the time. But yeah, so we'll see what these players are going to tech into very soon. Both players are going to get a barracks into a factory. No forward barracks or anything like that. They're both scouting around the map as well, trying to figure out where the other one is, what the other one is plotting to do. But we're basically, as soon as these factories finish, we're going to see what the next stage of the game holds for both of them. Goodfriend, like I said, has been looking very solid in this Star League. Really, really curious to see now if he does win this, though. He'll be going up against a very strong Zerg player. I think. Wait. I'm trying to remember what the bracket looks like. Yeah, I believe the winner of this is facing July Zerg. So that's not. Yeah, that's who the winner of this faces. So that's going to be a difficult one. Hold on, thought. We got 2 Marines and an SCV versus 2 Marines and an SCV, but it is in Midas's home territory, so they're going to come right up against each other. Oh, is he going to? Oh, he's going to lose. And Goodfriend actually losing out early, losing a Marine, losing an SCV, not getting any kills in return, and then a little bit of a misfire there, trying to go back in with his 2nd Marine. And so we do actually have a little bit of a push coming out here for Midas. I don't think this is going to accomplish a ton, because with the defender's advantage, he's going to be able to produce his own units, and he does have a Vulture out now. So that Vulture is going to be able to help defend against these Marines pretty well. Of course, Midas does have his own Vulture, but a second Vulture is going to be popping out pretty soon for Goodfriend. And actually, he's pulling SCVs off the line to make sure he has some more meat to front for him just in case while he gets out those more units. And in the meantime, Midas is going to say, okay, well, you can't push back on this, so I'm going to contain you. It's actually building a bunker on the high ground above the ramp. Now, Midas has gone for a starport play, and he's getting a control tower as well, so if I remember seeing that correctly. So he's not going to have quite as strong of a push here as he would if he was got 2 factories and he was pushing out siege mode for tanks, which would be a really, really solid contain he could put on here. But instead, he's getting the starport, and it looks like dropships. We don't see cloak upgraded at this point, although I didn't actually see if the starport was producing anything. A tank is out now for Goodfriend, though, so he's going to be able to kind of hold things back from this contain because, like I said, Midas is not producing his own tanks right now, although it could pop out, of course. Machine Shop is spinning for both players. Likely to be siege mode for Goodfriend. That's what I'm imagining here. Could be mines for Midas at this point. He's a lot of vultures and he's trying to do a little bit of a containment. So there we go. Now that siege mode is out, he's able to start shelling that bunker. Siege mode is, well, it's very good for sieging, but also good for anti-sieging, for breaking out of situations where you're contained. You can sit back and be a little bit safe and just siege up. And actually, Midas does have his own siege mode now. Now, he's abandoned the top of the ramp, but he is still falling back. I'd be curious. I think that tank can actually spot the top of that ramp, so he's still containing Goodfriend from getting out of his own base. And look at that. That one Marine does go down. So this Wraith that was popped out of that starport that we mentioned is able to just pick away at these tanks very effectively. The tanks, Midas's tanks, are able to protect that Wraith while it picks off the other tanks. So this is an excellent spot here. But Goodfriend trying to push up to the top. Doesn't want that mischance. Pushes up. One tank goes down very quickly. Midas has sent in those reinforcements to attack the tanks. And the second tank is going to go down as well. The third tank on the low ground, or the first, I guess, tank on the low ground is still there. And the second tank that got up is still there. And he's actually killed off Midas's tank. Singular. If Midas had a couple tanks there, it would have been a much different story. But now, the counter push going on. Goodfriend pushing across the map. He's got Goliaths. And look at this Wraith just kind of slowly following under cloak, trying to pick away at those Goliaths. A second Wraith has joined in as well, but he's also repairing the tanks and repairing the Goliaths. So he needs to go after those SCVs. But yeah, so very little damage done actually by those Wraiths because they weren't able to attack very quickly, obviously, as Wraiths. I mean, able to do damage very quickly, I should say. Wow, actually, and Midas now kind of a little bit on the defensive here. Trying to defend himself now with that siege mode. And he's having to just make use of how annoying these Wraiths are. And to kind of harass these units. Goodfriend going in. Excuse me, Goodfriend going in to try and break this. And he's actually killed off one tank. There's nothing there to reinforce. The Wraith is just not powerful enough to really do anything against this ground force. Goodfriend has basically just been ignoring the Wraiths and just repairing with a few SCVs to counter the damage of the Wraiths. And he hasn't been killing the SCVs with the Wraiths. And it looks like he's... Oh, it actually gets... Is he going to repair it? The tank survives! That tank was so low, and I don't know how Midas didn't kill it. I think he might have attacked the SCV instead. Oh, the Wraith does come in and polish it off. Very nicely done. Otherwise, that would have been a bad situation. But, well, it's still a bad situation. He's still kind of contained. Midas is stuck on his low ground right now. He's producing these Wraiths, but the Wraiths, again, are just kind of being an annoyance rather than an effective counter to this situation. Now that the SCVs are dead, it is going to be more of a problem. But, I mean, there's Goliath, so as soon as he runs out of cloak energy, he can't really do anything either. Probably just going to have Comsat. I haven't seen a Comsat skin go off yet, but he probably has a station waiting to scan at the appropriate moment. There he does have the scanner as well. And actually, so building turrets in his main, I think is a nice move to do. But also, building his own starport with the control tower. Curious to see if he's going to counter with Wraiths. Now, I feel like a lot of these TVTs that we've been seeing in this time period in 2003, 4, 5, the counter to Wraiths has been more Wraiths. We often see when one player gets a starport, the other player instead of just getting Goliaths, which obviously Goodfriend has done at this point, but they'll just get 2 starports and counter the starport with starports, right? So curious to see if that's what he's going to do here and get his own wraiths. Of course, he's behind on the wraith count, so he would need to get a second starport if he wanted to catch up. And here we go, those wraiths coming in to harass, and excuse me. I keep actually. We'll hold that thought because Goodfriend moving down the ramp with his Goliaths is going to take out these tanks. Again, nothing defending the tanks. The wraiths are off harassing, and he only has the wraiths because he went 1 factory, 1 starport, and so he actually doesn't have anything to defend his own tanks. And so now Goodfriend has a solid containment position here, and Midas was, you know, kind of trying to break out a little bit or trying to defend against it, but that push down the ramp, taking out Midas' defending tanks, was really effective. Here come the wraiths in from the side, so he can try and do some counter attacking against those tanks. If he can even up the tank count or diminish it. And it looks like both tanks are going to die. Look at that. Very nicely done. There's turrets on the high ground there. I think it was maybe a mistake for Goodfriend to move down the ramp. He had a perfect setup. He had Goliaths and turrets to protect against the ranks, the wraiths. He had tanks next to them to hit the low ground, and then he pushed his tanks away from the turrets. And the Goliaths weren't there to defend, and he just lost his tanks. So Goodfriend, you know, defending against a hard push, pushing back very effectively, and then kind of blundering a little bit of his advantage away, unfortunately. And yeah, now Midas is able to break back up the ramp and with his own tanks and get control of his actual expansion now. Now here's the thing though, is during this time, Goodfriend has expanded to the 3 o'clock position. So he is going to be able to get a longer term advantage by getting that economic advantage up and going, because while he was putting that pressure on, he wasn't just pressuring, he was also expanding. So nicely done by him. What I was going to say earlier is I apologize because I keep actually yawning randomly. The kind of yawn I can't suppress. It's like keeps like just popping up on me. I'm not even that tired, but it could be because I've actually been having dealing with insomnia lately, which has kind of sucked. But anyway, that's a whole long story. It doesn't really matter too much. But point being, I had to like take a sleeping pill last night to try and get to sleep, and so I think maybe the effects of that are still a little bit lingering in my system, so that might be why. So, but apologies for the uncontrollable yawns in the moments of battle. It's not exactly how. It's not how I'm feeling about the battles. It's just Anyway, point being, Midas has managed to take his own expansion as well. It's a little bit behind, but he is gonna maintain a little bit of evenness with the expanding ability. And there we go, the second starport going down for Goodfriend. Goodfriend is cloaked preemptively, which is going to waste a little bit of energy, but he's going to run in here and during do some attacks. It looks like he got some hits down there. The turret was in range to view those wraiths, to get vision of the wraiths, so that way he was able to counterattack with his own wraiths. It was a good idea to run in cloaked and try and get the first volley before your opponent scanned. Looked like it didn't quite work out for Goodfriend that way. I like this idea. He's kind of putting random turrets in interesting spots, just kind of to make a little bit of a barrier, just kind of have a vision range. I think it's Goodfriend now producing wraiths out of 2 starports. He wants to win the air battle. Of course, if you win the air battle, you can win the ground battle. Theoretically, unless they have a lot of Goliaths. So it's kind of smart to try and win the air battle. If you can stay even on tanks, which he can because he's got a really good economy going on. By the way, this is really random. I did not know this about Midas. I had pulled up his thing on the side to check out his name to make sure I was correct about the names of the different players, because they always, by the way, here's the trick that I usually use, is when they, on all these televised games, they show the player's spawn point and then they show their face, and then they show the spawn point and then they show the face, so you can tell who's whom by just saying like, okay, they should just show the 9 o'clock and then they're showing Midas's face. Of course, I know these gamers well enough to recognize their faces pretty well, most of them. But in any case, sometimes if I miss that in the beginning, I'll try and look up their name in Korean on the side and match the characters match the spelling of the name. But in any case, I pulled up Midas's page to just check what his name was in Korean, so I could double check against the key at the top. Apparently, he had 2 nicknames. I never knew this. His nicknames were the Engine and Baby Bear. I'm not sure why he was called Baby. He looks maybe a little bit like a teddy bear. Maybe that's why. I'm not sure. But the Engine? I am not sure. I mean, because I don't think like the little engine that could, which is like an American, you know, I don't know. It's not fairy tale. It's a story, I guess. Children's story. I don't think that's probably a Korean thing too. And hold that. That's really interesting. So Midas is pushing out here and just kind of roaming around with his raids. Loses a couple raids for kind of no reason. Goodfriend counterattacking here. And the cloaking is going to make it really annoying because when they're cloaked, it's even harder to tell what color they are. So again, forgive me in advance if I mess up the colors of the units here. But anyway, we have Baby Bear is pushed out into the middle of the map. And he set up a nice little position in the middle there where he's got his wraiths, he's got turrets, he's got tanks, and he's actually taken a 3rd base as well, about the same time as Goodfriend. So it looks like their economies have kind of evened up. Baby Bear Midas has managed to kind of catch up in that regard. Goodfriend may still have more stuff. And I like Goodfriend's positioning a little bit better here. Look, Midas's tanks, those green tanks we just saw, are clumped up. They're in kind of a clump, right? Which is good in some situations, but not in a TVT situation. Goodfriend's tanks are in a line. You know, that's the kind of the way you want to set up your tanks is in a line so that they're all focused firing on the same spot, because the way that Midas's tanks are set up, and Goodfriend is trying to push out. Look at the arc. You can kind of see the arc in. I'm gonna put a point out on the minimap here. You can kind of see this arc of teal in a flat line sort of thing, and wraiths being traded back and forth. By the way, it looks like Goodfriend does have the superior wraith count at the moment, which is obviously. We'll hold that thought. So we have now Midas has 4 starports. Well, so Midas has now countered the increase of Goodfriend starports. Again, not conceding the wraiths and trying to build. And here we go. He's pushing in, trying to push out a little bit farther and break this containment positioning that Goodfriend has. But again, see right now, if you move a tank into position, let's say on the right side there, at first only two of Midas's tanks will actually be in range to hit it, right? Whereas right now, if, like, let's say Midas pushed south into Goodfriend's line, all 4 of those tanks on the bottom are going to be in position to hit it at the same time. So the line is just a better positioning when you have a tank versus tank battle, you know? Goodfriend is playing this a little bit better. Midas expanding again in the top left. He's now up to 5 starports. Absolute insanity. 5 starports. And actually, 4 starports for Goodfriend. He's building a 5th as well. He does not want to lose out on the air advantage that he set up. And it looks like he's actually set up turrets in the top middle of the map as well. Oh, he's coming in here with a drop with 4 Goliaths into this semi-island base. The tanks are there to the wraiths are there to back them up as well. And so, you know, if he tries to come in with dropships, he can pop the dropships with the wraiths. And it looks like Goodfriend, Midas realizes what a bad position he's in to defend this base. Is actually just gonna retreat. He's not gonna try and run in. He has less wraiths. He can't get ground forces there because this is on a low ground behind a mineral patch thing. So, and oh, he's gonna go in with his own wraiths, and it's gonna be a giant wraith battle with the Goliaths to support on the low ground. Goodfriend actually falling back with less wraiths there for a moment. But the Goliaths are more than enough to even out the wraith count, and just, oh man, a slaughter of wraiths. He runs into turrets and loses some of his own though. So definitely some titting and tatting. That was an awkward thing to say. Going on, meaning they're trading back and forth. Wraiths going down for both sides. So basically, you know, 12 or 18 wraiths have died in the last 20 seconds on both sides of the battle. But the Goliaths do maintain the ground position. Oh, can he shell actually that Goliath? Oh, he pops the Goliath from the low ground, which is a little unfortunate because he didn't need to have that Goliath there. He could have had it farther north, out of range of that. And actually, and now we got to push in here, and I didn't really have time to notice that, but some of the tanks had gone down for Midas. Midas was producing only wraiths basically, and so when Goodfriend actually saw an opportunity to push in there, you know, he'd flown his wraiths over there by accident, but in doing so, he had scouted and seen that Midas basically didn't have anything. Right? Look, he's got 3 tanks, and you just saw them unsiege and move up to this northern position to kill this one Goliath. And so Goodfriend says, wait, you only have like 3 tanks and they're out of position? I guess I'll just take my dozen tanks and just overrun you. And you can see on the minimap that's exactly what's going on in here. Okay, it's not a dozen, it's like 8. But it's still more. And with the superior wraith count as well, yeah, Midas just has no answer for it. Sees the writing on the wall, and the writing on the wall says, GG! Goodfriend, a quick 2-0, well not quick because it's TVT, but Goodfriend winning 2-0 against Midas, and he is going to advance to the semifinals to face the Terran Killer, the God of War, Tushin July Zerg. Not going to be an easy feat, but if he can manage to defeat July Zerg, then it will be, you know, there have been occasions where players have gotten to the finals, and people say, oh, well, he had an easy road to the finals, right? He didn't beat the best of the best, but, you know, defeating Midas is a good, his group stage, Goodfriend had some solid games and beat some really good gamers as well. But if he manages to defeat July Zerg to get to the finals, you know, that will be a feat, definitely. I think what I'll do is I'm going to talk about the bracket real quick and show off exactly, you know, who's in what position in the bracket, talk about potential final matchups, the semifinal matchups. I'm going to do that as an anti-spoiler video for this series. So if you want to know about that and you want to get a preview of what is going to happen in that, you can check that out. I'm just going to pop up the bracket real quick, though. There's the bracket. Anyway, so I'm going to talk more about the bracket in the anti-spoiler video. So check out the next video if you are interested in that. GG.